am I going to get my break? What do you say to that person that's been an assistant for a while, wondering is it ever going to come to fruition? And then what do you say to the person that just took over and is in charge?
Yeah, I was never one that was like, oh, I want to be a director at a Power Five, or I want to work with football or basketball, or any one thing. So that's where I really just tried to be where my feet were and make that a big time where I'm at. That's kind of a cliche, but
It's a good book
really
too. Really
yeah,
good book.
enjoyed the work where I was at UIC. I had a great relationship with my boss, Nick Sistatis. Kind of started out there as an unpaid intern, then a paid intern, and then a full time. Got my master's there, and so had a really great opportunity to grow and develop with him and the department there. Um, and so I didn't at that point. I didn't have family. I didn't have I love Chicago and the city. I didn't need anything else, right? I love the teams I was working with and the work day to day. But then you get a relationship, and then you have a kid, you get married, things change, and so it was time to kind of start looking for that next step. And we'd had some changes in administratively, and they had brought in Mike Schweigert, kind of from Northwestern. He oversaw the department, and kind of we're starting to go a different direction. And so I was able to take kind of things from both Nick and Mike to bring forward. And so one of the things reflecting back on that transition from school to school, I don't think we did a good enough job promoting ourselves as a department. And I don't mean like social media self promotion, but within the university or within the administration. And so like I think our students knew we did good work, our coaches, but at the end of the day, there was a disconnect between administration and strength and conditioning, which I think can happen often, talking to other colleagues around. And so I'm really focused on how we can grow that and keep that relationship strong here. Coming in, that was a big focus, but then also, growing the communication and between strength and conditioning, athletic training, the sport coaches, and growing that from here. Because one of our challenges is we have 3 weight rooms in 2 different buildings
Wow.
across. It's like 3 miles between buildings. So some of my staff I
Oh
don't
my
see all the
God.
time, right?
That,
So,
yeah, that's not easy.
and then our coaches' offices might be across the street in townhomes or at the other, the Mount Vernon campus. And so, really trying to find ways for our staff to be intentional about their communication and try to promote that is huge.
How do you, and you know what, as I hear you saying it, like obviously it's difficult because it's not what I'm used to now. But I remember Brian Phillips when he was at JMU, he was talking that he had multiple weight rooms and trying to do a better job. So the reason I'm saying all this is some of our listeners out there are in that position, whether they're directors or they're assistants. What's your piece of advice on how to be really intentional with your communication to keep everybody on the same page to then serve the athletes?
Yeah, the strategies I've tried to use, and it's still updating and iterating and always trying to get better at it, because you get busy being busy doing the day to day, and so that's an area as I'm the basketball season is ended and trying to shift into kind of the off season mode, but then also keep the director part of my job at the forefront as well. But some of the tactics have been weekly emails or periodic emails, um, updating all the stakeholders in the goings on of sports performance. So, kind of a template that we have for our staff is, what has been done in the recent last week, any data updates, good or bad, and then kind of highlight or like what's to come, the weight room insight, what's that way the sport coaches you should be talking to daily anyways,
Yeah.
but same thing with athletic trainers, but keeping the sport admins in the loop, keeping the academics in the loop, what's going on, because the weight room can be a scary place. There's guys like us with beards and tattoos and loud music and yelling, but it doesn't have to be that way in terms of like letting them in terms of how we operate, making sure they understand that there is a scientific basis backing to what we do. It's not just you know grunting and lifting more weights. It's a fun part of it, but there is actually a rationale and behind how we're operating.
Let's dive into that. What is your philosophy as a director? How do you go about educating the staff that you have? Like, okay, this is how we're going to train the athletes that we have here. Like, these are the movements we're for sure never going to do, or like, do you have things like that? Because, you know, when I was at Harvard, Frage was like, listen, we're not pulling from the floor, right? And they used to when they were with Fit. So like, have you done things of that nature? Where are you at with that?
No, I'm much more autonomy within structure. So we're fortunate. We have 3 GAs, 3 full-time staff right now, and they're basically the head strength coaches of their teams. So no one has more than 3 teams. And as long as they're not doing anything crazy, they're good to go, right? I gained a lot of benefit from that as my time when I was starting out. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that within reason, right? It might not work for everyone, but for us, we have high level practitioners. When I came in, they're already doing it. They just hadn't had a director for a year or plus. And so just kind of needed that commander's intent. The biggest focus on my side is creating common language. So making sure, cleaning up our team builder, all the exercises and getting all that, you know, making sure we're speaking that same language first in our department, but then with athletic trainers, with sport coaches, making sure that they are understanding the difference between, like incline bench press and incline row, like getting that stuff, organized has been a big project.
As you get things organized, how many members on your high performance team are there? Do you guys have a nutritionist, athletic training, sports psychology? How have you been able to assimilate all of those aspects, where you're at?
Right now, there are 6 strength and conditioning coaches or sports performance. We're, kind of changing our name as to be that. We're fortunate we have a good number of athletic trainers. My direct supervisor, Chris Hennelly, has been here 27 years first as an athletic trainer.
Wow,
and now
that's long.
Now it's funny because he was athletic trainer when Tanya, our athletic director, was an athlete here. And
that's unbelievable.
Yeah. So you never know what athlete might be your boss someday. So treat them well. And so he kind of oversees student athlete health, wellness, and performance as my supervisor. And so within that, we've had nutritionists in the past, part-time. Psychology, the mental health is a huge priority for us. So I currently don't have in-house, but we're looking at options in terms of bringing in both the nutrition and the sports psychology. I'm not that I'm uninterested in the mental health, but for the performance side, I'm interested in that as well.
How would you go about rolling it out? And let's say in a perfect world, you already had it. What would speak to those that have it and kind of give them some guidance in your perfect world as what you would like to see it
from like a department and that high performance model?
Yeah,
I think it's a great question because you look at like the highest level, but there's still teams that have injuries, teams that people fall through the cracks. So I think just getting everyone in the same room, that's one of our challenges, is just getting meetings more often. Like my wife doesn't understand that we don't have like or we have a shared calendar, but like you can't put yourself on someone else's calendar, which happens all the time in her work. So just like trying to create the system to facilitate some of those things, whether it's like checklists, and that's really the focus right now.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.